talk to you.
Sorry, just muted there. Hello, everybody. You're very welcome to the Cooperation Projects Application Workshop by the Creative Europe Desk Ireland. Myself and Aoife are the Culture Office. So we're situated within the Arts Council. And yeah, we've previously done a kind of overview of this call when it was first released this year, but yeah, we just wanted to do like a more in detail look at the application process. So just a little bit more housekeeping. If you could keep yourselves muted throughout, and then yeah, we'll have time for questions at the end. So I might just kind of might just begin. So yeah, what we're going to look at is the I'm going to run through like a kind of overview of like what the cooperation projects are. So a reminder to everyone that was there at the previous session, but also if anyone missed that, I'll provide a bit more context there. And then we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive then into the application process, the kind of key priorities and everything of the call, and like the budget. And then there's time at the end for a Q&A. So you can pop messages into the chat, or just you can speak at the end as well. And if you want to, if something comes to mind afterwards, you can always email us. And in fact, please do. So I might just jump right in. So just a little bit of context about the Culture Office. So what myself and Aoife do. So the Culture Office, as I mentioned, is situated within the Arts Council. So that's like a partnership. There's also a media office. So if your project is more audiovisual, we can put you in touch with them if you feel it's maybe more on that side. So what we do is we provide information, advice, and assistance to Irish applicants, and we promote the programme at local, regional, and national level. So if you make an application and you're successful, it's really useful to get back in touch with us because we can collaborate with you on events or just kind of sharing different information about your project. And then we also collaborate with key sectoral stakeholders and agencies, and we have expanded collaboration with like Creative Europe Desk Network. So there's like our colleagues in different countries that do the same role, but in different Creative Europe countries. So we also assist with partner search requests and develop cross-sectoral partnerships and events with the media program. So why the EU funds culture? So there's obviously the kind of intrinsic value of cultures to society, which I'm sure we all feel quite strongly about. Then we have sort of pre-existing like treaty commitments. And then there's kind of broader EU policy. So these are some of the policy documents that like are really relevant to kind of how the priorities of the call are like formulated, like what's kind of what informs the kind of strategic objectives of Creative Europe, like the kind of wider objectives. So those can be really useful. Like for example, if you're looking at the sort of environmental aspect of it, maybe you might look at the Green Deal or yeah, that sort of thing. So it can be useful to have an idea of the wider context as well. And then we have the culture sub-program for 2025. So this includes like all the calls within culture. Cooperation projects is kind of like the main one. But there's other kind of smaller strands as well. So it's 111 million across all of the culture strands. And there, particularly for cooperation projects, there has been an increase since last year. And then there's a 3.5 million commitment for Culture Moves Europe. So that's the artist mobility strand that individual artists can apply for. And also there's continued support for Ukrainian projects and artists. So that's kind of embedded in a lot of the calls, but it's sort of like um, looking at the kind of current situation in Ukraine, but also um, how recovery might be like post-war. So how projects can like preserve cultural heritage or different things like that. So um, yeah, the kind of overall priorities then of culture are resilience and recovery, um, fostering transnational cooperation and exchange of practices, which I suppose is really key to cooperation projects, the circulation and visibility of European works, innovation and joint creation, and capacity building of like the cultural and creative sectors to nurture talent and create jobs. Also capacity building of artists. And then there's key players and multipliers. So the kind of like the wider like national sector and who the kind of key players are within that. Um, and then we have the overarching priorities. So we have gender equality and social inclusion. So projects of or for marginalized groups and intercultural dialogue. Then we have sustainability. So the Creative Europe contribution to the EU greening efforts and the European uh, Green Deal. Then we have digital transition, so content produced and disseminated is increasingly digital. So the sector to increase competitiveness, AI opportunities, and copyright concerns as well. And then we have international relations, so transnational cooperation and support Ukrainian cultural and creative sectors in cooperation projects and circulation of literary calls. So what is a cooperation project? So it's a multi-annual cultural and art or artistic project. Involves partnerships between organizations in different countries. So depending on which strand, you're going to need a higher amount of partners, but they will have to be within different countries. So that international collaboration is really key to what cooperation projects are. And they achieve common objectives across borders. I think that's really quite important in terms of like identifying something. So for example, maybe it's an environmental thing, but it's something that is a concern across multiple countries and sort of like a coming together to like explore that in some kind of cultural or artistic way. So it requires match funding, and individuals are not eligible to apply. So artists do participate. Obviously, they're like key stakeholders within cooperation projects, but they can't apply as individuals. And then, yeah, so it supports diverse partnerships and funds a broad range of activities. Just to kind of get into the strands then. So there's three strands of cooperation projects. So there's small, medium, and large. Small is a minimum of three partners from three countries. So you do need to have those like those other partners. And then for medium, we have five partners from five countries. And then large is minimum 10 partners. So that's like a really large scale project that could be like 2 million. And generally like the applicant might like the lead partner might take a larger share of the budget. So organizations that would be applying to that strand would be like quite large, like have capacity to take on something of that sort of magnitude. Then also, yeah, so who can apply? So organizations with a legal entity, so NGOs, cultural institutions, museums, arts and culture organizations. So it's quite broad in terms of who can apply. They must operate in one of the participating program countries. So I'll go into a bit more detail about that in a second. And then you must meet the minimum partner requirements. So 3, 5, or 10 partners from different countries. And then the coordinator, so like the lead partner that I kind of mentioned there, they'll have to be in legal existence for at least 2 years on the date of the deadline. And they must have sufficient financial and operational capacity. So I guess if you think of like the person reading the application, you kind of do need to prove that you have sort of like track record or capacity to be able to take on like a large scale project. Um, yeah, so then we have eligibility. So the applicants, so the beneficiaries and the affiliated entities must be legal entities, so public or private bodies, and be established in one of the eligible countries. So we have the Creative Europe participating countries, like EU member states, including like overseas countries and territories, and non-EU countries. So listed EEA countries and countries associated in the Creative Europe program. So you can check out that list if you're not completely sure about and like the location of a partner or something like that. So just as an overview, so you can't apply as a coordinator for more than one project, but you can be involved in multiple projects as partners. And you can't apply with the same project under more than one strand. So like you can't, yeah, you can't like put the same application or same project into like more than one um, like strand or even another like stream. So projects, and then projects have to last like a maximum of 4 years. So it can't be any longer than that. And then just a note about pre-financing. So 80% of the maximum grant for small and medium scale and 70% of large scale. So this is like quite similar to like if you've ever gotten funding from the Arts Council. So like it's just that you draw down like a certain portion of the grant and um, then you um, then you get the other 20 or 30% once you've like drawn down the um, once you've like submitted your report. So then we have cooperation projects. So the objectives. Um, so objective one is transnational creation and circulation. So to strengthen the transnational creation and circulation of European works and artists. So yeah, you have to pick one of these objectives. Um, sorry, I'm just seeing kind of like lines coming up on the screen there. Yeah, so we have objective one, transnational creation and circulation. And then we have innovation as the second one. So to enhance the capacity of European cultural and creative sectors to nurture talents, to innovate, to prosper, and to generate jobs and growth. And then the overall kind of timeline is that the deadline is in May of this year. And then the evaluation will be in August, decisions in October, and then the signature will be in January. And then just the Arts Council co-funding award. The deadline for that will be in autumn, and then that relates to the 2025 Creative Europe calls. So yeah, that's kind of like that is a separate call, but basically how it works is that you get your decision in October, and then um, you might apply then directly to the Arts Council with your successful application in autumn of 2025. And then the schedule for that would be that the calls you would get information about your co-funding award, whether or not it's successful. You'll get that around this time of year. The results are going to go out quite soon. Yeah, so the Creative Europe Co-funding Award from the Arts Council is open to Irish arts organisations successful under cooperation projects. So they apply the same year as they're successful. And then the fund is for like Irish artistic costs directly related to implementation of the project. And then the deadline would be autumn 2025 and relates to the 2025 calls. So another key bit of that is that you have to apply to the Arts Council one in the same year that you receive the offer of funding from Creative Europe. And then we funded 36 projects so far, with the total amount being like around 800,000. So yeah, that's only if you're successful, but it can be useful to know, yeah, just to kind of bear in mind that can be, you could kind of count that into your timeline a little bit. So I'm just going to hand over to Aoife, who's going to go into a little bit more detail in terms of the kind of assessment and like budget and the application process.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lucy. Um, yeah, I see one of our attendees is getting very creative and artistic, and doing some nice line drawings there on her presentation. Anyway, how bad? It looks great. So I'm going to keep going with the assessment. So for every application or every scale within these within the cooperation project, whether that's large, medium, or small, the assessment is the same. Um, and there's a maximum of 100 points for the evaluation. And that's there with a threshold of 70 out of 100. So you must get above 70 out of 100 to pass that threshold. And more than 50% of the max score under each category. So this is something to keep in mind. Not to kind of be overemphasizing or over applying in a way to one category over another, because you must get at least the 50%. And then, as you see from the relevance or from the breakdown there, you know, they are weighted, but it's still that you need to get 50% above that for each category. So the relevance is 30, quality of content and activities 30, project management 20, dissemination 20. But these are all key factors. Obviously, the dissemination and project management being work packages within themselves, within the project, and they're obviously key. So basically, what I'm saying is you have to kind of really apply yourself to all of the categories and be kind of doing excellent in all of them to do well in this assessment. And so the next slide, thanks, Lucy. So relevant. So what is how is a project relevant? So is it relevant to the objectives and the priority of the call? Is it based on a sound and adequate needs analysis? So you'll see within the application form that these are questions, these are within the question. So do you have an analysis for a certain kind of approach to your proposal? So you do need to think these through. Now it's changed actually, not the cross-cutting issues, it's the overarching priorities. So are you addressing these overarching priorities? And they were the ones of gender equality, inclusiveness, the Green Deal, environmental impact, etc. And does it have a European added value? I mean, is it adding to, as Lucy was pointing out, a kind of cross-border issue or a cross-border theme? And are you adding, what are you adding to that as an overall theme with your proposal, with the way you are kind of approaching this project? Lucy, sorry, I'm going to be maybe I'll just do a double wink or something. So relevance. So we, over the years, within this program, we have kind of through the network, through our colleagues, we've been able to get other feedback around the assessment and what has been said around the, for instance, relevance in applications. So the feedback was that an audience development strategy didn't include specific tools or channels. It didn't, the methodology of workshops were not explained. These are areas where this is really key to kind of, if you read through these, the not to do basically, so that you should have your workshops explained. There should be transnational mobility that has enough detail within the project. You should link your information on artists and the type of art they are created and disseminated. So, making your project relevant through these specific areas. So in the blue here, these are positive feedback. So the strategy was clearly formulated. The project goes beyond the sole interest of the partners. The activities point to longer term impact. So they're really good things to kind of keep in mind when you're making your project relevant. The next page. So quality, what do we mean when we're saying quality of content and activities? So the proposed methodologies are appropriate for achieving the project's objectives. So yeah, that kind of how to. So your objectives are a, a certain kind of theme, and how are you actually going to achieve that? And that's very clear. The project involves an appropriate mix of participating organizations in terms of profile and expertise, and ensures an active contribution from all of them. So these are the kind of your content, the activities, but who's going to deliver them? So is that a quality kind of balance between those kind of organizations, whether they're medium, small, and then the kind of expertise as well. The target groups will benefit concretely from the project. So you're showing how that will actually happen. And the project design is consistent and coherent, notably with the proposed time frame. So there are key ways of making your content and your activities kind of very coherent together, but also the quality of it. Um, and the next slide. So then again, the negative kind of feedback, I suppose, were that things like activities were related to target groups, but they were hard to evaluate due to the lack of content, not explained sufficiently how the outreach will work with a lasting impact, a lack of selection criteria for involved artists. So they're kind of areas where you could definitely improve and use that to make it your quality in the content and activities. So then the positives were target groups were related to specific activities, very meticulous, well-structured and defined activities, very clear and concrete activities, including training programs and community toolkit, etc. So these are other ways that you can take notes and kind of use for potentially in your own project design. And next. So project management. This includes effective mechanisms for coordination between the participating organization, proposes an appropriate governance structure, including effective communication within the consortium, adequate procedures and problem-solving mechanisms within the consortium, involves the appropriate project team, staff, and outside resources, including know-how, qualification, and resources to successfully implement the project. So yeah, really, your team. Who is your team? Who are the organizations? And you will see in a moment how they're going to be connected to a particular work package. But then in the project management, kind of behind the scenes, how are you going to work together? How are you going to be communicating together? And kind of basically the plan around that is your project management. Um, yeah, so the project's budget is cost effective and allocates appropriate resources to each activity. The measures planned to ensure project implementation are of a high quality, including management, risk management, quality control, planning, monitoring, and evaluation. So to see with the feedback on the next page, yeah, so these are the negative elements. So majority of the budget goes to a lead partner, therefore no strong involvement of partners. So that's very kind of black and white, where the spread of the budget effectively isn't there. So that's a bit of a red flag. The particular role assigned to each partner is not fully explained, as their skills are not especially strong against the area assigned. The ideas about the future of the partnership are not clearly demonstrated. Yeah, so these are areas you could look at. And on the positive, the partnership is underpinned in a guiding principle document that will lead to a shared understanding of the project's underlying principles and language. So that's actually a great idea. It's not a mandatory document, but if going that extra mile and kind of putting in those principles and ways of working, you're planning for that sounds very effective. So it could be something to consider. The next page, dissemination. Again, this is another key area of your assessment. So the project triggers change and innovation. The communication and dissemination strategies have the potential to reach and positively impact target groups and participating organizations as well as the wider community. The project proposal includes concrete and effective steps to ensure sustainability of the project, its capacity to continue and having an impact and producing results after the end of the action. I think there might be some more on the next page. Okay, yeah, sorry. No, so the feedback. So yeah, there's no evidence in the project how the EU support will be made clearly visible and no plan for beyond the project. Communication strategy is too vague and cannot be evaluated. So, they're kind of obvious ones. The limited budget allocation for communication cast doubt on the validity of the EU engagement. So, yeah, really being able to have a very clear communication and dissemination strategy, one that has a methodology and targets and all of that built into it. And again, there with the budget, if it doesn't have a sufficient budget, it's not going to be able to do the work it's kind of saying it will. Collaborative communication strategy, well-described tools. So precise plan of media and marketing corresponding to the needs of the target group. So these are all ways of kind of producing a strong dissemination strategy. And the next slide there, Lucy. Okay, so we're going to go into the actual application process. And the next page there. Thanks a million. So, this is the kind of background information. We have this all within this PowerPoint, but just to say, make sure you know the deadlines, make sure you know the duration and the key dates of when the selection process and all of that, the possible start date. So keeping that in mind for your project, know your maximum grant and the percentage of co-financing, and your payment schedule. So how that will work within the project. Some eligibility criteria. So knowing, all of the bits around. Now, all of this is in the core document. So it's just about kind of doing your research beforehand, knowing the minimum amount of partners for the scale that you're going for and the types of organizations you would like to work with, or the types of organizations that are eligible. Your awards sub-criteria, so the weighting of the scores and the score thresholds, we've just talked about those. So kind of just being aware of all of that. Limits of the financial support to third parties, and your annexes. So within the call document, again, there's notes on the financial support to third parties, and we'll look at them now in a minute for the budget. So if we can go forward then. So again, more pre-reading. So the online manual is key. So you can there's links to it there, but when you go into the actual process for application within the funding and tender portals, you will have all these documents. So you register and submit your proposal through the funding and tenders portal, and you might be aware of this already. The recommendations for the preparation of the application are within the online manual as well. So just get your hands on these and get reading. The model grant agreement. So this is a detailed annotation of all the provisions in the grant agreement that you will have to sign in order to obtain the grant, and that includes cost, eligibility, payment schedule, accessory obligations. So again, that's another document to become aware of, and read through the key parts. So they're there. The core documents, the EU, the model grant agreement, the link to the EU tenders, funders and tenders portal, and the AGA, the annotated grant agreement. So they're all that's your by the bed book list. So before you start, so the annual work program of 2025 will have the call document within it, and it outlines the background, the objectives, the scopes, the activities that can be funded, and they're all in the sections noted there. The timetable, the available budget, your eligibility conditions, criteria for financial and operational capacity. We'll be talking about that in a minute. The evaluation, the award criteria, and then how to submit an application. If we can go forward. Um, so we're at the beginning here, and this is the funding and tenders portal. So this is a support page, first of all. So it's really useful to, when you start, to go to the support before you register and have a look through there to see what is needed, and just getting kind of aware of the portal itself takes away any of the scariness of making the application. So the sooner you do this, the better. You might have started and registered already. So if we can go to the next page. So you register on the Funder and Tenders portal, and here's a link to how to do it, or to gain access to it. There's also a link there underneath it, and it's the portal for beginners. That's a kind of a webinar that you can look over. Really useful. Again, just kind of being able to visualize and see the pages, and become aware of it. All partners for these projects will need a participant identification code, or a PIC code, and this is issued once your legal entity is confirmed. So complete your legal entity form. So your legal representative will sign that form. You will also submit a copy of your VAT registration document, an official document given by your national authorities. So your CRO company registration with your address of the legal identity. This could also be your statutes or your articles of incorporation. So once you've done that and you're registered as your entity and your organization, then you find the call and start the submission process. So on the next page, we'll see. So there you are, you're registered, you've got your PIC for your organization. And for this purpose, we've done a mock-up for the Arts Council. So that's you. On the next page, so there, sorry, you can see the create proposal. That's for you, for your starting of your proposal. And the templates are kind of listed there on the left-hand side. So the next page, this is just to know your roles for the application. So the applicant is the beneficiary. They're the coordinator who's coordinating and doing the application on behalf of the partners. So, but all partners are beneficiaries as well. Affiliated entities. These are entities that are linked to a beneficiary with similar rights and obligations as the beneficiary, but they do not sign the grant agreement, and therefore they do not become beneficiaries themselves. Associated partners, so organizations which participate in the action but without the right to get the grant money, so they bear their own costs. They can be non-eligible country organizations as well. So depending on your kind of consortium, associated partners could be, for instance, a UK-based partnership partner who can be involved, but they do not get grant money. Subcontractors, these are third parties implementing specific tasks of the action that cannot be implemented by the beneficiaries. They are paid for this, but they can be non-eligible countries as well, country organizations. Third parties giving in-kind contributions, and they bear their own costs. They will not become formal recipient of EU funding, and they can be non-eligible country organizations again themselves. Under third parties, so third parties can have financial support for third parties who provide a grant or a similar kind of a prize giving kind of activity, and these are in the call document. There are rules that apply to this. They need to be an open kind of call process. They need to be open for a certain amount of months. It needs to be a very transparent process. But there are documents within the call document to kind of check what those, because the EU have kind of tight enough rules on how those third parties can be involved in the project as prize givers or open call kind of um, activities. So on the next page, back to the kind of budget or the application documents first. So the application form itself, Part A, so the administrative information about the participants and the consortium. This is filled out directly online. So when you've registered, you'll see when you enter into the Part A, it's an online document and you can save as you go. Part B is a technical project description. This is downloaded. So you saw it the first bit when we were on the kind of portal. It had it on the left-hand side. You download Part B. This is completed and re-uploaded as a PDF. The document is limited to 50 pages, so no additional pages after this will be read. They'll actually become grayed out, so the assessors won't even see it. So really kind of keep an eye on that, and that's key. So, just to be very concise and only use up the 50 pages. Additional project data will be under Part C, and that's to be filled out directly online again, as well as the choice of objectives, priorities, and sectors. So they're the kind of the areas that your project is going to address. Annexes. So these are really key. The detailed budget table is to be downloaded. We're going to look at that in a moment. It will be completed and then uploaded as an XLS document. So an application without a budget table will not be eligible. There's another annex, which is the list of previous projects, and this is a template which is available in Part B, and it's on the last page. This is uploaded separately as well. So just all of this information is in the call document. So just remember that there are parts to it. I mean, this is actually here. It's very concise, has it all here on one page in the PowerPoint, but just keep remembering exactly what you need to provide for the application. No additional annexes can be uploaded, including CVs, because they will not be considered. And the piece where it is your past projects, I mean, that's your CV basically. So kind of that's where you're encouraged to put your information about the partners. And the next page. So application form part A is general information. You select your priorities, your project description, your declaration. The second part of it is your participants, your partners. And then the third part, which is not the second part, the third part is your budget. So complete after your work package and your budget table has been completed. So we'll see now in a second how that works. So for the application form part B, these are the areas you're to kind of focus on. So the part one is relevance, and all of these will have questions to kind of prompt you. So the quality of content and activities, your project management, your dissemination, and then looking at your work packages. Each area will have questions to prompt you, and really it is about reading it properly. And it sounds very simple, but once you really read those questions, you know what they're asking for. Because as the desk, we know ourselves, we do this application every 2 years, so we know that this is the way it works. For the written part of it, it is just really around obviously pre-thinking it beforehand and planning it. But when you're writing it, it is kind of reading the questions and knowing what they're asking for. The next page. So just work packages quickly. We did look at this before Christmas, but eligible costs and activities should be grouped together under defined work packages. This allows for greater emphasis on defined deliverables, your outcomes and results. And then if you keep to a number the amount of work packages, it will make budgeting and reporting much simpler. Lump sums are calculated per work package and paid only when that work package is completed. Although we did mention there is the pre-financing, but the last payment will be paid once that work package is delivered. So that's how it has worked. You need to be clearly identified whether the action is completed. So that's within the reporting part. There's ongoing and monitoring and documentation and evaluation is very important. And also because there are deliverable points along the process of the project. So this will help when you're monitoring and documenting your activities in the process. Work packages. So define your work packages, assign responsibility to a coordinator who is to a partner. The coordinator is responsible for work package one, and that's um, the project management. Group your activities and costs under each work package across the project and the partner. So we'll see within the budget now in a minute how each work package is separated out and the costs that can go into each one. Define your outcomes and your deliverables. I'll yeah, no, sorry, just now I'll just say to when you're planning so when you're in the application form and you're going through each work package and the kind of plan around those activities, I would really say to make them very effective in that they're very linked to what the activity is, but to keep them simple because um, you can over egg what kind of deliverable you're going to do in this application phase and because you're being ambitious and because you would like to do a load of deliverables but there are a key amount of deliverables and it would just keep them simple and directly related to what the activity because at the end you will be reporting and delivering those deliverables. So, just try and keep the process as simple and effective as you go. And the next page, sorry, thanks, Lucy. So just quickly looking at what those activities could be. We did look at these already. Management and administration and coordination, the activities planning, preparing, evaluation, etc. The deliverables, agenda meetings, evaluation reports, planning reports. So they're the kind of deliverables you can have for that work package. The next one is artistic activities. So activities in the realm of artist practice could be concerts, exhibitions, fairs, a circulation of works, literary translations, etc. Deliverables, God, that's a hard word to say very quickly. Schedule the planning of rehearsals, prototypes, technology-based products, publications, etc. The next one is capacity building. So this is another work package and the types of activities. They could be artistic residencies, mentoring programs, training courses. Your deliverables could be schedule of mentoring programs, your mentoring course program, presence lists, travel documentation, etc. Your knowledge and sharing, network and knowledge sharing is another work package, activities, conferences, seminars, research studies, surveys, your deliverables, a program or agenda of the conference, analysis of surveys, your study papers, policy papers, etc. And we've one more work package, I think. Yeah, communication and dissemination. So your communication dissemination campaign, your production of communication dissemination material, and then your deliverables, communications plan strategy, social media posts, banners, gadgets, PR, press, etc. Um, so you'll see when you will define your work packages and then you'll know what activities you're going to do within that work package and then you'll come to the budget. And when you come into the budget and the next page, you'll see on oh, I'll come back to that, Lucy, actually. Sorry. So The budget is a lump sum for the cooperation projects, and the advantages of that are that it's a grant linked to results. So if you deliver what you've said you do in your agreement, you will be paid. It is based on applicants' own budget and work packages. So the work packages for each partner relates to your budget. There's no financial reporting or audits to the agency, so all of this are advantage points. But the detailed planning going in, as we're talking through this right now, going into the writing and planning of this application is quite onerous. In it becomes simple, but the thinking now at this stage, working out those work packages and the budgets allocated is a lot of work, but it will make it easy in the end. So you organize your activities and deliverables in work packages. We know that. And the budget per organization is per work package. So just you have to remember that now as you're going towards your application stage. The grant may be reduced if only part of the implementation is or the activities are implemented. So this has happened, and so if you plan to do a certain amount of activities within a work package, you must deliver them to get the full payment for it. So do remember that. There are allowances for amendments along the way, and this is something that we can kind of help you with the agency for whatever reason. If you need to change an activity, or a work package needs to kind of be adjusted, then these are allowed, which is a positive. The next page then. So eligible costs for the within the budget for part A, the direct staff costs. Part B is subcontracting. C is purchase costs, and within that, there can be travel, accommodation, and subsistence. Two, equipment, and there is a depreciation sheet which is available within the a link to it within the call document, and really you've to approach that like look at that in terms of the overall project and how the equipment will depreciate over the time of the project, so you can work out then the budget for it. C3 is other goods, works, and services, including artist fees and production costs. D is financial support to third parties, and E is 7% indirect costs. And these are calculated automatically. So they're looking at kind of rental costs, for instance, or any costs that are directly not related to the implementation of the project. Then we're going back to yeah, so these are great, useful links for how you calculate your travel, your subsistence, your personnel costs. We'll look at then in a second, and your management of lump sum grants. So kind of they're really key documents to have a look at when you're doing your budget, when it comes to your budget. Okay, and the next page is yeah, so as I said, the budget is based on an actual cost analysis or a cost grant. So actually, how much do your activities cost is what they want you to do, and it must be clearly linked to those activities in the work packages. So this is how you look at your different units of cost. So personnel is one unit is 1 month. So over the course of the project, how long is that personnel going to be working on the project? Now, realistically, the main people working on the project you would think will be working more than 1 month. So that works out as a unit. But if there is a case where the personnel is not working for a month, you can break it down to a day, a day-to-day unit, and you can explain this in your comments. So there is a part within the budget to explain certain kind of breakdowns. So you can do that. Your travel, one unit is one journey. So that's basically it. So when you're calculating those journeys for whoever, for artists or personnel, that's how to work it out. And then subcontracting needs to have a clear justification and be a value for money. So the subcontracting can't be printing, within your which you can do within your organization, unless it's a publication that's actual being, bound and printed. So you can't be putting in subcontracting costs like that, which actually could be done within your organization. So it's really for expertise outside of your organization. So just to be clear on that. Um, and the next page is, yeah, so getting started with the budget form. So as I said at the beginning, the budget form is a mandatory annex, and it needs to be uploaded. Um, and without it, your project is not eligible. You need to be working within Excel within 2010 or newer on Windows only. The only currency available or to use is euro within the budget. When you're working on the sheet, the budget sheet, you save it as a .xlsm document. When you're uploading it, just to make it a little bit confusing, you upload it, it has to be a .xlsx or XLS document. So you really have to adhere to this, those different types of documents to just double, triple check that you're doing it correctly. When you're approaching your budget, you only fill in the following: the beneficiaries list, the work package list, and that for each beneficiary there will be a budget which will be annotated BE00 and then the number of the beneficiary. So you'll see that when you come into the budget now in a moment. But the rest of the kind of summary pages, you within the budget. So there's a number of pages, but they will be the proposal budget, the estimated costs, and the overview, and they will be automatically calculated. Okay, so the next page. Thanks, Lucy. Now, so here is your budget. So when you get to the stage of your application, go straight into the first um, page there, and it's an instructions page. So this is really brilliant because even as we've done this application so many times ourselves, the instructions are always there and you can go back to them, and they are very helpful. And it's a kind of step-by-step way of looking at the budget and what needs to be done. So, um, you know, they're looking at your calculations, and that it's a mandatory document. You again there, what I've just mentioned, that you need to use it within 2010 or more recent on Windows, and the currency. Sorry, Lucy are you still there, Lucy? Uh, we'll move on to the next page. Thanks. Um, so anyway, the instructions are brilliant. So yes, go kind of refer back to them if you think you're not sure about something within the budget. The first thing to do is fill in the kind of EU contribution and the co-financing rate here at the beginning. So obviously depending on what scale you're applying for, and this one we've set at the small scale, 200,000. And the co-financing rate is 80% for the EU. So you can set that out at the very beginning, and that's the budget will refer to that. That is where your costs are kind of going against that total amount. And the next page, please. So the next step is to set up your list of beneficiaries. So beneficiary one in this case is the Arts Council, and in this case we're saying the Arts Council is the coordinator, so it's the beneficiary one, and then your next partners coming down below that will be your next beneficiaries. So as you go, you double click this apply changes. So every time you add or take away a beneficiary, it'll apply the changes to your overall budget documents. So the next page, is so the list of the work packages. So we know that you need to have management and administration, you need to have communication and dissemination, and your implementation artistic activities. So they're the key ones. And then whatever additional work packages you would like to add in there as part of your project, there, this is where you do it. And again, you will double click and apply changes to save all those work packages within the budget sheets. And then, so this is the beneficiary one. And this is the Arts Council. So they're doing the management and administration as the lead coordinator. So this is their budget and their as the beneficiary and their activities related in there. So as you can see, you're putting in your employees. So the list of the kind of eligible costs we just looked at. And then you're looking at subcontracting costs and purchase costs underneath that. So that's really it. I mean, you're doing it per beneficiary because you've allocated the beneficiary to each to a work package. So it kind of brings that together. And then when we get into the consolidated budget, which I said at the beginning here just a moment ago, is automatically generated. The consolidated budget has all of the work packages within it. So it's a full long running budget of the whole project, basically. So you can cross-reference and make sure that the budget you've entered into each beneficiary and work package is, is referenced correctly in this consolidated. But I mean, generally, it is working fine unless there is an issue with the Excel sheets. But do kind of you can cross-reference between the both just to check. And the next slide. Okay, so that's really kind of the final bit there of the budget. You know from the outset, you know what scope, you mean what scale you're applying to, so you know what your EU budget co-financing is, the amount, and the percentages for your totals that you set up at the beginning. So then the budget is kind of relating back to that. So that's a big bit of management, really. I would say start this process with the budget. I mean, I know you're still working on your project design, but you can be tipping away at the budget as you develop the project, because you'll know that you always have a project management. So I would kind of say you could start with the project management part of the budget, because they're kind of key activities anyway, for any project. And then as you develop and design the project, keep adding to it. So what we would say the final thoughts are, yeah, detail, detail, detail. It is around knowing what you want your project to do, knowing that you're delivering on a certain kind of whatever the objective is that you've selected, or the priorities that you're constantly, reinforcing that the project is actually delivering on that. Yeah, relating it back to the award criteria. And I said to, start the application and the budget process now. I would encourage that, leaving enough time. I know it sounds like you've loads of months to go, and you do, till May, but it just gives you a lot more breathing space if you can kind of think through it from this moment, and be working the budget process in at the same time. Um, Again, don't leave your kind of communication and dissemination strategy to the end either. It is weighted within the assessment. It is a key part of the delivery of one of these projects, and it is worth putting the time into it now. We'll talk in a second about events that we are delivering on that can help you with the kind of ideas around, or the targets for communication strategies. Yeah, focus on your outcomes and deliverables. What are kind of effective deliverables, or what are achievable deliverables within these kind of projects. And exactly budget in line with your aspirations. Yeah, you could be very aspirational and very ambitious, but you also should have enough money to do that. So you should put aside realistic budgets for what you want to achieve. And again, just kind of reevaluate that all the time. Don't be kind of scrimping on your detailed communication strategy or your budget to try and have more budget in another area. So make it kind of flow, I suppose, across the project. Um, and I think so the last slide is, yeah, so we do have a series of capacity building events coming up around diversity and inclusion, around fair remuneration, around sustainability, and then a communication and dissemination strategy one at the end. So sign up to the newsletter as well, but you can also, those links, you can register for those events, and they will be helpful um, around developing those areas of your project. And I think we're going to finish up there and we can have questions. Thank you.